What's up, guys? We're going to be talking about strings. Now, we know on a basic level that a string is simply a type of data that we associate with text, but an important part of coding is being able to manipulate strings in various different ways. Let's see some examples. Let's start by declaring a variable and assigning it a string value. So we'll call it myString, and let's just type out some of the alphabet letters. In fact, let's type them all out since we've begun this journey. Okay, so we have all of the alphabet letters. Now let's think about some of the built-in functions that we can call on that string. Now technically they are called methods, they're not called functions. Functions and methods are very similar. A method is something that's called on an object. Now we'll talk about objects a little bit later on, but just know for now that functions and methods are the same thing. They just have slightly different contexts. But for now, we can use the two terms interchangeably. Now, there's certain built-in methods that we can use on strings in JavaScript. And you'll see this is true of every programming language. There are built-in methods or functions that we can call on strings. Simple example of one such method. Let's console log out myString, and we are going to call the toUpperCase method. And because it's a method or a function, we're going to have the open and close brackets, which we use to indicate that it's a function or method. Let's see what happens here when we run this. We get the alphabet, but it's now been changed to uppercase. Another example is we can call myString.length. Now, this is not technically a method, it's actually a property of the string. So we don't need the two brackets. Let's see what happens if we console log myString.length. We get 26. So this is the number of characters in the string. Makes sense because we know that there are 26 letters in the alphabet. Another method is .slice. And this is going to take in some parameters. One of the advantages of having a code editor is we can see that there are some hints here automatically displayed in terms of which parameters this method takes in. Now, slice is going to take in two parameters. It's going to take in a start number and an end number. Now, one of the things that's fairly common to programming languages as well is that the first letter in a string is considered to be at position 0, not position 1. This is the same when we start considering items in arrays, which we'll discuss later in the course. So let's start at position 0 and let's end at position 5. So this is going to slice the first 5 characters. Now technically position 5 is the 6th character, but the slice method is not going to include that final character. So we are going to get A, B, C, D, and E. So if we run this particular script, you can see we get A, B, C, D, E printed to the output. We can also use .slice with a single parameter. And what that will do is slice out the rest of the string. So if we just include one parameter here, let's see what we get. You can see we get all the letters from J onwards because we start with the 9th or technically 10th character of the string since we start at position 0. And since we didn't define that second parameter, we slice everything else out of the string and we are returned J through Z by the method. Now there are other very similar methods. For example, we have the Substr, and what this does is same as slice. We're going to start at position 9, but the second parameter tells us how many characters we're looking to slice. So you can see here, we are just returning JKL, whereas if we set that second parameter to 4, we now get 4 characters from the string. Another example is the .replace method. So let's change our string, and we'll call it myBoringString. And we are going to console log myString.replace. And this takes into account 2 parameters here. So we're going to include as the first parameter the part of the string we want to replace. So we'll replace boring. Then our second parameter is what we want to replace it with. So let's see what we get here as a result. Now get my exciting string because we've targeted boring with the first parameter and we've replaced it with exciting. Now, there are countless other methods that can be used on strings. Plus, we can make our own functions to manipulate strings as well. The goal here is not to cover every available method. The idea here is whatever you want to do with strings, there's probably a way of doing it. There's usually a built-in method, and if there's not, you can write your own function. The same applies to the other languages we've looked at in this course as well, PHP and Python, a huge amount of built-in methods that can be used on strings, but once again, we can write our own functions for manipulating strings in these languages.